Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here, a real pleasure to be here. And to assist me this afternoon, I'm getting too old to do it myself. So I've had to get two young, beautiful people to do it for me. Tony and Amanda Dockman, thank you. Now, I've called my lecture Then and Now. And I'm indebted to the late Josephine Bradley. When she died, she left me most of her memoirs. She was an avid writer. She wrote everything down. Even when she judged the competition, she wrote down her comments and got them all in a book. So that many of the things I'm going to speak about this afternoon, they are from Jo Bradley's memoirs. Now, you all see the competitions, you watch the competitions, and you see it all, what's happening. But it had to have a beginning. Now, in 1922, before I was born, not much before I was born, but in 1922, Victor Sylvester, dancing with Phyllis Clark, won the World's Championships. And the waltz that he danced was called the Round Waltz. I think what we shall do is we'll show you the Round Waltz. Tony will dance it for me. Now, at this stage, posture was not important. The lady's style was smaller. It was a little more in. It wasn't as bold and as open as it is today. But this was the Round Waltz of 1922. What is it? In Jo's notes, she wrote that it was rather strange. No one ever turned to the right. Only, as you saw Tony doing it now, only turned to the left. Now that was the Round Waltz of 1922. In 1923, Maxwell Stewart, dancing with a lady called Barbara Miles, won the World's Championships. He actually won 5 World's Championships, and not all with the same partner. But it was in 1924 that Maxwell Stewart again won the World's Championship, but again dancing the Round Waltz. But Jo's note said he danced some dramatic spins in the Round Waltz, dramatic spins. And he called them the double reverse spin. That was in 1924. And the reason why he called them the double reverse spin, he never danced a single unit. He nearly always danced 4 double reverse spins following each other. Now this is what it would have looked like, the Round Waltz with the double reverse spins. Now in 1926, Josephine Bradley observed her partner, Andy, his name was G.K. Anderson, but he was given the pet name of Andy. She watched him doing what was virtually change steps in the ballroom. He did not like the round waltz. He thought it was boring. And she watched and observed what he was doing. And she decided to put a shape to it. And so she taught Alex Miller and Phyllis Haylor. She formed a dance with them. Now this is what she developed in 1926. Thank you, Tony. Now, I don't have to tell you that this waltz that Tony has just danced is change step natural turn, change step reverse turn. They won that competition. We had a newspaper called the Daily Sketch, and the Daily Sketch had a competition in 1927. And after she had put the shape of these figures together, Phyllis Haylor and Alex Miller danced in this Daily Sketch competition. They were the only couple dancing what Josephine Bradley called the diagonal waltz, because it started diagonally to wall, finished diagonally to center, changed it, went diagonally to center, and finished diagonally to wall. So that's why it was called the diagonal waltz. They won that competition. They won that competition in 1927, and the round waltz was never seen again. Never seen again. Now we're going to stay a little bit with the double reverse spin. In the meantime, other figures came into the diagonal waltz. First of all, you had the double reverse spin, but it did not have an entry, did not have a proper entry, and so the spin turn was evolved. Then Alex Moore fell over, doing a change step, put his foot behind, and he got a whisk. There's a funny little story there. Alex liked to have a little whiskey. And they said that's why he called it the whisk, not the whiskey. Then after that, you got Charles Theobald. He invented the left whisk. Then we've got the fall-away whisk and the back whisk. So all the whiskies came in at the same time. With so many whiskies, you finish up drunk. Now in 1960, when we came back from South Africa, I noticed that all the couples were dancing a much bigger hold, but they were all dancing one figure that I had never seen before. And so I went to Len Scrivener and I asked Len Scrivener, what is this figure? He says, Bill, it is called the hinge. He said, it's like the lady is doing a left whisk, but the man is doing a type of oversway. So he taught me how to do the hinge. This is the hinge, by the way. No music. Now you can see the hold is now bigger. The lady's posture is more open. A beautiful line running from the toe right through to her head. That's right, thank you. But I had a little problem. I practiced it and practiced it and practiced it, and it never felt comfortable. Because Bobby's legs were longer than mine. With these short legs, I didn't do too bad. So when we were practicing the Hammersmith Pallie, I said to her, instead of crossing your foot behind, to give her a little more depth, I said, take your foot back. And this is what we got, throwaway overswing. And that is what we got. And it was during a lesson with Josephine Bradley that we danced this in our lesson. And she said, Bill, one moment, please. She said, Bobby is not doing a hinge. And I told her, I said, I feel uncomfortable doing a hinge. So I asked her to take her leg back. Oh, she said, it is an oversway where she's thrown her leg away. She said, I'm going to call it the throwaway oversway. And that's how it got its name. Now we go on a little bit to, again, the early '61. And I was having a lesson with Charles Theobald, a very good teacher. And he said, Bill, I have been experimenting with the foxtrot. And he had showed me a figure that he had developed in the foxtrot. And he called it the 4 feathers. He did a feather, he did another feather, he did another feather, and he did another feather. Now he just made all these up together. But he said, I have been experimenting with the double reverse spin. So what he said I have done, this was the original concept. He said, I have danced the double reverse spin as a man with a weight change. And then I'm going to step back and dance the double reverse spin as a lady. He danced the double reverse spin as a man, made a weight change, and stepped back on his right foot and did the double reverse spin as a lady. This is the figure. Double reverse spin with a weight change, heel turn, and a double reverse spin as lady. We'll just have a look at that again. This is the original concept of the overspin. That's right. Now, I practiced it, but I did not like the feeling of doing the heel turn. It felt restrictive to me. It felt quite restrictive to me. And so I danced, instead of the heel turn, I did a reverse pivot. And this is what it looked like. And this is a strange thing, this, because this is almost going back to the days of 1922 when they did the round waltz. Watch it again. I danced a double reverse spin with a reverse pivot, and then into what is now commonly called the Viennese waltz lock. Do it once again, Tony. Double reverse, pivot, into the Viennese waltz cross. That's good, thank you. About this time, the reverse turn was very seldom seen, because they wanted to get more movement, and they started using figures like followaways, chassis to the right, and so on. Now, what happened in the meantime, in this effort of trying to get this volume of movement, the hold became bigger, there were fewer closing of the feet, which is a pity, and the basic spin turn was developed into what was called the running spin turn. Now this is your running spin turn. Thank you, Tony, it's enough. That's right. Now, well, I've just shown you the double reverse spin with the overspin and with the pivot into the Viennese waltz cross. But as this figure became developed in different ways, the double reverse spin overspin became not enough. It was not enough. So they put a pivot into it and did another double reverse spin overspin, and this is the figure. You'll see these figures being danced in the ballroom this week. Double reverse spin, overspin, another double reverse spin, and up you go, into a standing spin. Now, if we add that, you might have a little problem fitting this in, Tony. But if we add that to the running spin turn, what you're going to see is a typically waltz amalgamation of today. Timothy has just danced a similar one in his lecture. Now this would be, take it from your running spin turn, bounce fall away, into that part. Sorry, just a second. I've got so many bits and pieces up in my brain, I've got to keep thinking. In 1961, soon after I learned the overspin, I was invited, I've got to mention this because it's going to be part of this amalgamation. I was invited by the Imperial Society to give a lecture. And in those days, a new lecturer was never trusted by giving a lecture on movement or style. They were only asked to teach variations. It was safe, because if you made a terrible hash of it, it made no difference. But I went to the ballet one evening, and I was asked to do this lecture on variations, and I wanted to have something different. I've always wanted something different, but I wanted something different. And so I went to the ballet, and I saw the ballet dancers, the ladies, doing a lovely action with their leg, picking the leg up and putting it down. So I asked my friend who was sitting over here somewhere, Jessie Liddell, I asked Jessie, what is the name of that figure? She said, it is called a développé. I said, oh. So I worked out an amalgamation, and I put the développé in. Now, up until that time, the dancers kept 2 feet on the floor. But I was going to be a little bit bold and get 1 foot off the floor. And so I taught an amalgamation at the Congress. I used 2 ballet figures, of which you're going to see very soon. I used a développé after a same foot lunge, and I used an attitude. So these 2 ballet figures had never been seen before. And as soon as I put them in this lecture, they became an immediate success. Now, of course, I basically opened the door for thousands of other ideas to come out, where the legs go up, the legs come round, whatever be. But now you will see hundreds of different variations of that one simple idea. Now, Tony's going to dance for you. Can you do? We'll do it with music, Tony. He's going to do a running spin turn. You can see the movement starting to develop here. He's going to do a bounce. He's going to do a side lock. Instead of 4, 5, and 6 of the reverse turn, he's going to do a side lock. Now you don't see 1 lock, you see them doing 6 locks together, all in the waltz, which has flattened the waltz out, by the way. It's flattened it out. But he's going to do a running spin turn, a side lock, a bounce fall away, a triple chassis to the left, a hover corte, a same foot lunge, a développé into a fast telemark. Did you get all that?
I got the first part.
You got the first part. Well, that's good. You must always remember, if you have a good beginning and a good ending, what happens in the middle, Tony, doesn't mean a bloody thing. Right. We'll have a little piece of the orchestra, thank you. Waltz, running spin turn, a side lock, a bounce fall away, a triple chassis, a hover corte, a same foot lunge, now the développé, over 2 bars of music, and a quick telemark. And attitude.
You need to buy me a drink afterwards.
I won't buy you a drink afterwards, I'll buy you a bottle. Someone gave me one as a present this morning. Now, Tony, we're going to do that again. Now, you can see, even in that amalgamation, he is still, this is my amalgamation, of course, and I believe in still keeping to the diagonal waltz. He started diagonally to the wall, his follow-away started diagonally to the center, he did his triple chassis, and from the triple chassis a hover corte, but when he finished his quick telemark, he was still going out diagonally to the wall. So even though it's very much a modern concept, it is what you will see in the ballroom this week. You'll see lots of them running back and doing different things, but this concept here is one of the most popular concepts. I think we should actually ask him to do it again. Do you think so? Now I'm going to leave the waltz. I could go on for a lot longer with different ideas, but I think you've got the general concept of what it is. Now I'm going to go way back to 1917, a long time before I was born. Now in 1917, they were dancing a foxtrot, but the foxtrot they were dancing then had walks, it had trots, and it had little pivots, and it had jaunty twinkles. Ooh, wapi-ta, ta, ayati-ta, ta. Wow. Jaunty twinkles. Now, before I say any more, I want you to put on a beautiful, incidentally, the music that is being played this afternoon for this lecture is by Josephine Bradley's orchestra. It must be 60 years old, and it was been reissued on DVD. And so that is why I'm using that style of music. Now, let us see the foxtrot with walks, trots, and pivots, and jaunty twinkles. Now, the hold is very small. That was the time of sweet music, soft lights, and champagne. Oh. Little different today. Little different today. Now you could see the idea of the walk, the little trot. The walk, the little trot. The little side chassis with the arm coming up. The little side chassis with the arm going down. Then from here, ooh, gee, ooh, ha-whoopie. That's wicked. Oh! That's got a, with that music, it's got a real wicked feel. Very, very naughty. Oh, very naughty. Now, after that was developed in the early 1920s, Josephine Bradley had developed the feather step. Now, the feather in those days, there was only one feather, and it was always danced outside the lady. Now, which side are you on there? That's your left side, that's your right side. So it was always danced outside the lady's right side. There was only one feather, followed by a three-step, and the feather step was always curved to the right, and the three-step was always curved to the left. Here is that foxtrot of early 1920. Thank you. Perpetual motion, nothing stopping, no pictures, nothing fancy, just plain good dancing. Now, after Joe had developed the feather step, incidentally, the feather step was a mistake, because when they first danced the foxtrot, they actually danced a lockstep, all danced in line, and their partner stubbed his foot one day and went outside, and she said, that feels much easier, and that's how the feather step developed. You'll hear another incident of a mistake changing the shape of this dance completely. Now, we then came a few years later to the open turn. It was not called a reverse turn. It was called the open turn. Now, many people think that when they actually see this variation in the foxtrot today, when they see that today, they think, oh, that's a new variation. It was the ending. That was the ending to the open turn in 1922. So, Tony will dance it with music. He'll do the feather step, the open left turn, with the heel pull ending. Good. Now, a man, famous dancer of his time, was practicing his foxtrot. And he caught his foot on his shoe and went to the side. And that feather finish changed the shape of the foxtrot forever. Because this now, instead of the foxtrot feather being curved to the right and the three-step being curved to the left, because of that figure, the feather step was now being turned to the left. And one other explanation came in, which hadn't been in the dance before. The word alignment appeared. The word alignment appeared in this figure. So that when you think of the feather finish, now in those days, as I say, there was one feather step. Now in the Imperial Society's technique book, there are 7. There are 7 feathers listed in the technique book today. Now you probably noticed that when Tony finished that, he went into what was the beginning of a reverse wave. But I'm going to tell you a little story about this. I love telling little stories. I've collected them for years. In 1961, I went to Scotland, my home country, to dance the Scottish Championships. And after that championship, there was a man called Alex Warren that used to be the compere here before me in Blackpool. He was the chairman of judges. And they had a ballroom in Glasgow. And he invited all the competitors back to the ballroom to have a drink. And the drink went rather copiously. He was very generous with his whiskey. Now, I watched a famous Scottish dancer who won the Star Championship in 1932 with his wife, Ella. His name was Bobby Philp, a beautiful, beautiful dancer. As I say, he's the only Scots couple to win the Star Championship in 1932. But I watched him dancing with my Bobby, and he danced a figure which absolutely fascinated me. It fascinated me. It looked a little bit like this. All in line. I watched him doing it, I read it, and I wanted it. So when I got back to London, I went to Hammersmith Pally and I was practicing with Bobby. And we were having a big fight because I couldn't do it with her. And Sonny Binnick was giving a lesson. And he came to me and he said, "Bill, what the hell are you trying to do?" I told him the story. I said, "I saw Bobby Philp doing this variation in Glasgow last week." And I said, "I want it because to me, it's typically a wonderful, wonderful foxtrot action." He said, "How was Bobby Philp standing?" I said, "Small hold, a little bit over the top." He says, "Yes." And he said, "How was your Bobby dancing with him?" I said, "Small hold, a little bit, almost giving him a cuddle." He said, "Yes." That was the style in 1932. But he said, "You stand up, you look up, she's got a much bigger posture, you will never make the curve. You'll never make the curve." But I was determined to keep that figure. I was being a tenacious little Scot. Never surrender. Never surrender. And so, Tony, this is how I developed that figure. Now your hold's going to be almost normal, Tony. Thank you. I'll get you music. I'll give you inspiration. There he goes. Straighter lines. Still in line. Triple chassé. And repeat it. And back you go. Triple chassé. And you repeat it. So I called that figure the extended waves. And now you'll see it danced in many forms today, but you will not see many girls staying in line. Bobby always stayed in line, because the popular way to do it today is for the lady to go outside and dance a back feather. Now that is giving you a little taste, because I've just been checking my time. I'm already 5 minutes over what I should have been doing. But I'll just, can I continue for another few minutes?
Nobody's going to stop you, Bill.
Oh. Now, in 1973, a very handsome couple came to my studio from Australia. His name was Greg Smith and Marion Elaine. And after he'd had a few lessons with me, he says, Bill, I would like a runner. A runner. I said, what do you mean you want a runner? He says, I want an amalgamation that's going to start me there and finish down there. Well, I said, I haven't got anything in my head at the moment. Let me think about it. So he went away, and I got my thinking cap on. And I had a variation that I used to teach with a counter follow-away, which never felt very comfortable. And so I gave him a follow-away, a counter follow-away, and a follow-away with extra 2 quicks at the end, which took him from there to the end of Blackpool. Now this, without music first of all, this was that figure. Now you're not going to do a lockstep, you're going to do a counter follow-away. There's the first, slowly, there's the second follow-away, the counter follow-away. There's the third follow-away, and here are the extra quicks and the weave ending. Quick, no, that's right, do it again, Tony. There's your follow-away, your counter follow-away, your follow-away, the weave ending. That's right, you got it at the time. Now, what many people call the 3 followaways is not the 3 followaways anymore, because they don't dance 3 followaways. They dance a follow-away, a lockstep, and then another follow-away. So why they call it 3 followaways, I gave it the name 3 followaways, but then I was a genius. Now dance it the way you would dance it in your program, okay? With music. Now, just before we finish, everything must come to an end. What a pity. But just before we finish, Tony has got an amalgamation that I think he got it from that young man called Marcus Hilton. And Marcus gave it the name, the helicopter. Now, you're going to do your helicopter variation for me? You think you can make it? You're so good looking, you know. Thank you. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I must really say to Tony and Amanda, thank you very much indeed for the help. Also, not only that, for the time they gave me in a week before Blackpool when they should be practicing for themselves. But they gave me some time so that we could just rehearse some of these bits and pieces. Tony and Amanda, thank you very much. Thank you very much.